Hello. Baby?
All right, welcome back. We talked about how to safely view the solar eclipse. Now we're talking about how to safely take pictures of the eclipse. Should you or shouldn't you use your smartphone, and will your digital point and shoot camera work to capture the eclipse? So to answer all these questions for us and to break it all down, some of the best ways to take pictures is Valley photographer Clive Christopher. You also do some photography of the solar system, right?
Ooh, I'm too close to the sun, blinded by light to the golden one.
This film experience is going to be a little different. So I'm going to ask that you get your phones out, because I will have you Google something in just a bit. In the meantime, keep your phone close and get it ready for use.
No, but go in there.
I leave
Hold on.
it all alone
Hey, Keita, can we have Kesley skilled for mobile? She's just coming in the building.
as I go back to the basics.
Come on. You see him?
But I'm looking at a report in a minute, okay?
Not a problem. Take your time, Keita. Thank you.
That's crazy.
I'll set out on my own, take on the world and face it.
At this time in my life, I'm 1 year removed from being hired to film the release of Tommy Chong's brand. I'm also working a job selling Comcast Xfinity home security, and I'm an astrophotographer with recognition from NASA. From 2014 to 2016, I went completely nocturnal because I wanted to photograph every planet in our solar system. And I also knew that the Horizons probe was going to fly past Pluto. I started in January of 2015 with Mercury and the moon. Hours before I captured the UFO that was featured in Chapter 1, I was getting my rig set up and testing different focal points on the moon. The reason why I sent this video to NASA is because I captured hydrogen and potassium particles surrounding the moon, which indicates a thinning and possibly a sustainable atmosphere. You see that thin blue line just above the surface? You can also see this in the image that was taken during the Voyager mission of Saturn's moon Titan. That blue layer surrounding the surface is an indication of an atmosphere that could hold human life. I've logged thousands of observation hours on our solar system using this telescope and camera. Here's a picture of me taking this image while teaching an astrophotography class at a local community college. Photography of the sun is dangerous, and I love doing it, and it should only be done by professionals. Living in Arizona, we are provided with some of the best sunsets in the world. One of my earliest memories as a child when I first came to Arizona was learning survival skills. One of the things that they taught us was knowing the path of the sun. Knowing the sun rises in the east and sets in the west makes it much easier for you to determine north and south when you don't have a compass. One can get lost when traveling through the rugged terrains, and being able to navigate yourself back to safety is extremely important if you ever become lost in the desert. Civilizations throughout history have used the sun, moon, and stars for survival, agriculture, and to even build cities. Ancient civilizations around the world have built structures off of the alignment of the constellation Orion. One of these ancient civilizations, like the Egyptians, built structures in precise places on land that match Orion. Whether it was intentional is unknown. They dwelled here in the American Southwest. Living in Arizona, you're surrounded by reservations, and I've been blessed to visit many of these in my lifetime, and even talk to elders from the Apache, Navajo, and Hopi tribes. Their creation stories are different, yet they all seem to involve seeing people from the stars.
Sing me a song tonight and watch the rain pour. Wrapped up until daylight, I need nothing more.
I was actually born in Parker, but my reservation's up at Hopi, so I spent a lot of summers up there. And you would see craft all the time, almost every night. And then we have a thing called, they say they come to watch us. They say when they're flying by, they're not here to scare you, they're watching you. My whole story starts from sort of the rites of passage as a little boy, and I'm probably the last generation, my age group, that went through those old time, what we call a migration story, where we originated. Now, geography certainly plays an important role in the trajectory of craft. In other words, they'll use, ley lines, electromagnetic lines. And the other part that I do know about mountains is the type of minerals they hold, and and I've literally actually seen this happen before. When a craft comes down, I've actually seen this.
Really?
And I was a peace officer a number of years ago up in around a place called Parker, Arizona.
I'm familiar with Parker. How long were you in law enforcement?
Let's see, from about I'll say 77, 8 to about 82. I was just up there for about 3 years, and then I got recruited for a special unit within the FBI, but we were being paid through the U.S. Forestry. I helped set up the first SWAT tactical units in the United States.
Okay.
They wanted to have an integrated force, so I qualified. But going back to the ley lines and all those things,
built by the ancestral Puebloans, more specifically, the Sinagua peoples, during the 11th and 12th century. They were also known as the Anastazia. There were a little over 1,000 people that inhabited this area after the eruption of the nearby Sunset Crater. Upatki, translated by the Hopi language, means long cut house. This establishment had over 100 rooms. It also had a ball court and a community room. This is one of the largest sites in the area within a 50-mile radius. Agriculture in this area was thriving because of the soil from the volcanic eruption that fertilized the ground. This area thrived until about 1225, when the site was completely abandoned. The present-day Hopi say that the spirits of the ancestors continue to protect the land as it sits abandoned. There were more structures that were built by ancient peoples, which include Montezuma's Castle, Walnut Canyon, Homalavi, Upaki Pueblo, Betatakan,
Have you ever heard of the aliens meeting with the U.S. government?
Yeah, Eisenhower, I think it was in
Yes,
April, yeah, 52 or something like that, or 54, yeah.
Now, he met with the blue beings, blue aliens. Now, I never really heard about that until I was an adult. And, when I was a little boy, I had polio. And one of my nurses was a Hopi lady. And she was now retired, because I had polio when I was like from 4 to 7 in the hospital. I had to stay in the hospital. And so we're out on the Hopi reservation, and my dad says, "Hey, do you remember this nurse named Jenny?" I go, "Yeah, she was a nice nurse." And I'm like 24 now. He goes, "Well, she's retired now, and she says she wants to see you." And I go, "Well, what's she want to see me for?" My dad said, "I don't know, but she wants to see you." So we went over to her house. And then, she was, telling me what it was like when I was a little boy and all this kind of stuff. She goes, "But Kawa, he's telling me I need to show you something." And Kawa to us is like our source. It's not a God, it's not a grandfather. We don't have a male, although a lot of Hopis say that our sun god, Tawa, and is a male. They kind of Christianized it. It was never a male. But anyway, so when I talk about Tawa, I pronounce it differently from the Hopis would pronounce it. But anyway, she says, this is Jenny, she says, "Yeah, there's something I need to show you. There's something you need to see." And I'm thinking, "Man, what is it?" She goes, and she goes, and we're in her living room. She goes, "It's not in here." She goes, "I don't keep it in here." She goes, "You have to come into my bedroom." So I and my father followed her into the bedroom. And lo and behold, she has a picture of she and Eisenhower standing with the Hopi Mesas in the background. Apparently she was his nurse while they were having this meeting, you know. Yeah. The only other person that saw that was my dad and her. And I don't know whatever happened to that picture at all, but she was all dressed nice and proper, you know. There he was, Eisenhower. Then it was after I saw that picture, that's when I heard about the conspiracy thing about the government meeting with them.
Yeah, it took place in California. I think it was California.
Well, I'm telling you, I saw a picture of she and him with the Hopi Mesas in the background. You know, I could take a piece of paper and draw like these mountains, and the Hopi will know that's our home.
These mesas are so recognizable and significant because the ancient dwellings that sit up there are aligned with Orion's belt. It took me some time to process the information that John just mentioned, because I always heard that the Eisenhower and extraterrestrial meetings took place in California. One thing I do know is Hopi elders are not known to lie. If John says he saw a picture of a nurse, Eisenhower, and what is known as the blue alien, he's telling the truth. And when you really think about it, it actually makes sense for this meeting to happen in Arizona. This story was only speculation until 2012, when a former U.S. Congress and Pentagon consultant known as Mr. Good came forward and made the first publicly known comments on this matter. Mr. Good stated that there were in fact 3 different meetings that took place between President Eisenhower and extraterrestrials during 1954. He said that the U.S. government and extraterrestrials met up at 3 different Air Force bases, and one of them was Holloman. And there were plenty of witnesses during each meeting. It's well known that President Eisenhower had a strong belief in flying saucers and extraterrestrial life forms on other planets. And it's said that he helped Winston Churchill cover up a UFO sighting that took place in the United Kingdom in 1957. President Eisenhower was on vacation in Palm Springs on February 20th, 1954. Shortly after dinner, he took an unscheduled trip from where he was staying. During this meeting, it said that he met up with an alien species known as the Nordics. Whatever was discussed, President Eisenhower denied the request. During the next 2 meetings, demands were met and agreements were made. One of these meetings, in fact, did take place at Holloman Air Force Base, and I always believed that one of them took place somewhere near Death Valley. So to hear John mention a nurse that has taken care of him since he was a little boy, showed him a picture of President Eisenhower herself and a blue alien, could very well be the 3rd location where the other meeting took place. With the military infrastructure that Arizona had during that time, and Area 51 just going online, this actually makes perfect sense for a secret meeting to take place in Arizona. See, when it comes to the origins of the Hopi, they will tell you that they come from the blue star planet of Orion. Also, knowing the layout of Laylines and the minerals that Arizona holds, it's extremely possible that this meeting could have taken place due to the sacred lands here in Arizona. Our native community here in the Southwest has one of the most fascinating creation stories I've ever heard. They dwelled in a place and they were being protected on an island that was underwater. This island was underwater due to the Great Flood. How did they get there? Somewhere near the beginning of time, the Creator, also known as the Great Spirit, came to this world and made an appearance amongst the peoples. The Great Spirit then gathered these people and took them across a large ocean to an island that was underwater. These ancient Puebloans found themselves underground inside the earth during the Great Flood.
So I've always heard a story that the Hopi, they come, from in the Grand Canyon or something like that.
Yeah, that's an emergent story. And that one has to do with basically the evolution of mankind. When in our stories, when someone, a witch or somebody no good, corrupts the people, and then that world has to be destroyed. And by the way, it's destroyed by, way back in the day, it's what we know as atomic power nowadays. An atomic explosion or that type of high, where the whole. And so anyway, that emergence is where we came from what they call the third world up into this world. So we went through, 3 other worlds before we stepped into this world. Most of these say that this is our 4th world. Most of the books that are written by anthropologists and archaeologists would also say that this is our 4th world. But I've been taught and believe that this is actually our 5th world. And we're a very critical place in this world.
When that time did come for the ancient ones to emerge from the 3rd world into the 4th, that's exactly what they did. They climbed upwards from the underworld. Where they would be given specific directions to follow. When they came to the surface, it's widely known that they emerged deep within the Grand Canyon. When this happened, they met what they called the caretaker of this earth, who is known as Masa. This is where they learned the traditions of honoring Mother Earth and respecting the land. They were all aware that this new world, known as the 4th world, was a gift from Masa. They were instructed to find the center place, which was known as their home. So they were told to travel in 4 directions. This point of interest is called the 4 Corners in the American Southwest. The ancient Puebloans were given a task by Masa to travel great distances as far as the earth would allow them to go. Each of the 4 groups were given a set of 2 stone tablets, and they were given specific instructions on the handling of these tablets. The set that resides here in Arizona is missing the corner and was taken back to its homeland, awaiting the return of the Hopi. While they were on this journey, they became one with the earth, gaining a special connection with the land. When they left in different groups, they traveled in a circular formation, clockwise and counterclockwise, also known as the spiral. You can see this in some of the petroglyphs in the high desert and even down towards Phoenix in the South Mountain Range. They were also told to watch the sky because a great sign would appear. And when this moment occurred, this would let the ancient Puebloans know they have reached their home. When they saw their symbol in the sky, they took place in present-day Arizona. They gathered together and shared what they learned. Through this shared knowledge, produced ceremonies and traditions that have been practiced for many years. Located near the second mesa on the Hopi Reservation, what is shown is the past, present, and future that is etched on a sandstone cliff. The petroglyphs that are depicted show the Hopi emerging from the sacred underground. There's also a sacred trail that starts at the Hopi Mesa, which ends at an ancient shrine located in the Grand Canyon. Using the sky, groups of people have navigated themselves all around the world by land and sea. One of the more interesting discoveries that took place in this area happened in the early 1900s, and that location is pinned on this map.
Even knowing about the G.E. Kincaid story, I'm not sure if you're familiar about that story in the Grand Canyon in 1909. There's something that always points back to the Hopi. You know, once again, from what I understand, they're really the start of it all.
A pinned location that is on this map holds one of the most significant and wildest stories you'll possibly hear. This happened in the Grand Canyon, and there's two versions to this story. Before the Grand Canyon became a national park, it was well known to be extremely rich and high in minerals like gold, silver, and copper. Teddy Roosevelt was making a push to stop mining and timber operations from happening in the Grand Canyon. This story is told in two different parts, and in each version, the Smithsonian has declined having any involvement. The first part of this story is G.E. Kincaid was an employee of the Smithsonian with another gentleman. However, both of their names do not show up in the records as being employees. The second version goes that Mr. Kincaid decided to go and try to find some gold and silver one last time before the Grand Canyon officially became off limits. He's traveling through the Grand Canyon on the Colorado River in a canoe. The water is somewhat calm when he notices a cave along one of the cliff walls while heading down the river. He takes his canoe and makes his way towards land, all the while keeping his eye on the cave. Once he makes it to land, he secured his canoe and began to attempt to climb the steep canyon walls. He eventually found a very old stairway that led halfway up to the cave. After climbing some of the canyon walls, he makes his way to the entrance of this cave that clearly appears to be man-made. He then walks inside, clicks his flashlight in the on position, and immediately sees writings on the wall that was not English or that of the natives. What was written was Egyptian hieroglyphs. This hidden elaborate city went about a mile into the cavern and was completed with Egyptian and Tibetan sarcophagus throughout the cave system. Once G.E. Kincaid was done investigating, he covered up the cave, made it back to his canoe, and eventually out of the Grand Canyon. He went to a local newspaper and told reporters about his discovery. They then ran the story in the April edition of 1909. In this article, the other man is known as Professor Jordan, along with G.E. Kincaid, who made the actual discovery. The Smithsonian has always denied that Professor Jordan or G.E. Kincaid has ever worked for the Department of Anthropology. All archaeologists have labeled this story a hoax. Well, as of recent, it has been discovered that there was a Professor Jordan and somebody known as T. Kincaid who actually worked for the Smithsonian. His full name was Professor David Starr Jordan, and he was affiliated with the Smithsonian for well over 30 years. It was also learned that Professor Jordan made an expedition to the Grand Canyon in 1898. He was also accompanied by a man named T. Kincaid on an expedition to Alaska. Jordan was offered and accepted a top position at the Smithsonian in 1906. Professor Jordan can also be found in many Smithsonian writings from the 1800s. And as of recent, the Smithsonian dedicated an entire page to Professor David Starr Jordan on their site. Hidden Egyptian cities deep within the Grand Canyon sounds absolutely crazy. But here's some interesting facts. Where the Hopi Reservation is located, if you stick a pin through the earth, that pin would come out in Tibet. One of the 4 sets of the Hopi tablets is in Tibet.
Are you familiar with the Hopi tablets?
Right, yeah.
Okay. You know, I can't remember the dates, escapes me, but pretty much predicted World War II. Couple of things that it predicted, right? These Hopi tablets.
Yeah. Not specific dates, but there was a timeline, yeah.
The set of tablets that were located in Arizona were photographed by a man for images for his book in 1963. In those photos, you clearly see that there is a pyramid on one of the tablets. When he went ahead and published his book, he decided to leave the pyramids off of the drawings because he knew how much controversy that would have caused in 1963. The most important fact of all, a corner of the Hopi tablets was broken off, and it said that that piece of the tablet was taken back across the sea and would be given back to the Hopi once they made their way back to that land. Well, oddly enough, in Ethiopia, there is a church that is guarded 24 hours a day. Also known as the Church of the Ark. Only open to Ethiopians, this church is visited by people from all over the world, and many say it's the true home of the Ark of the Covenant. People of the West are not allowed, and the guards are known to get upset if you even approach the gates. If it's discovered that the corner of the Hopi tablet is located inside that church, that gives validation to their origin story. How could influences of the indigenous natives of this land be all the way in Ethiopia? There's also another location that involves a church where the native influence can be found. Presently, this chapel is a hotspot for paranormal and ET activity. More specifically, an alien portal. Founded in 1446 by Sir William St. Clair, in present day, Rosland Chapel is famously known for being in the film The Da Vinci Code. Its connection to the Knights Templar and Freemasonry is very real and started in the early 1980s. However, there's an even deeper connection. Visitors have experienced strange occurrences that led them to believe that there may be a portal inside this chapel. One of the things that John mentioned was having an understanding of ley lines and how the energy coming from the earth can be felt by certain individuals.
But going back to the ley lines and all those things,
Many people believe it's an invisible yet powerful force that connects you to the land. Locals say that ley lines run beneath Rosland Chapel. Scholars believe that ancient peoples used ley lines as safe paths of voyage on landscape. The origins of ley lines come from Europe during the 1920s. They were first recognized by a gentleman named Alfred Watkins. In his book called Old Straight Track, what Alfred observed was safe, straight lines of passage from sacred ancient sites, mounds, and places of burial in a pattern. These observations made him draw the conclusion that this is how ancient peoples traveled from point A to point B safely. Watkins also believed that the ancient peoples built sacred sites at the starting and ending points of these lines as markers. Future generations would continue this tradition by building updated sites on top of the original structures attached to the ley lines. Many experts have learned that it's more than just alien activity that has been witnessed. Paranormal activity, such as ghosts, demons, and spirits, have been reported in this area. It's said that they try to make contact with this world on ley lines. People who study the subject say this is why ghosts appear to travel in straight lines in certain areas. Visitors from all around the world that are wanting to feel the energy at Rosland Chapel tend to find themselves in the northeast corner, where it is believed to be the location of a vortex. Also known as a portal, a vortex can occur on certain spots on land, inside mountains, or even in the ocean. Theorists on the subject say these locations is where the concentration of energy being emitted from inside the earth is a lot higher. These locations are where ley lines cross. Observations from experts show they have experienced and documented tingling sensations, vibrations, and even sound. The chapel itself, it's said to have been designed in secret code, and the secret code involves the use of sound. Experts in Scotland and surrounding areas believe that once this code is cracked, it opens up the vortex that is said to be beneath the chapel. The concentration of energy is heavy in one specific location once you're inside the chapel. The architecture that is shown gives sense that the builders may have experienced something highly spiritual and powerful. Inside the chapel, hidden deep in the architecture, lies this code that was captured and frozen in time. There are all kinds of cryptic designs and patterns, but there's a specific set of designs that has baffled everyone who has set foot inside this sacred chapel. Located inside, on the southwest wing of the ceiling, is a series of cubes, almost identical in size, with different patterns on them. It's been discovered that these cubes are different pitches of sound waves captured and displayed by imagery. These musical notes are believed to have been played by a higher power for the builders. They then captured the vibration of the sounds, etched them into small stone cubes, and placed them in the archways of the ceiling. It's also said that if the sounds are played correctly, the vortex will open up. These captured sound waves are surrounded by 13 angels in total that are each shown to be playing a different musical instrument. The notes that have been gathered and deciphered, we learn that it is a song in the somatics music system, which is the science of taking sounds and producing images. Since its discovery, the song has been played at different pitches, and there's no reports of a vortex that is opened up. Scientifically, nobody has been able to prove these claims. The Apprentice Pillar is another extraordinary design located inside Rosland Chapel due to its connection to Freemasonry. Its exact meaning is a part of a puzzle that has lasted over 500 years. Theorists have proposed that the pillar represents the tree of life, which in Christianity and Judaism stood in paradise, that was known as the Garden of Eden. This pillar is made from sandstone, the same type that can be found in the Grand Canyon. Not to be confused with the Mason's Pillar, which is located on the other side of the chapel. The Apprentice Pillar has more of an exquisite, detailed, and sophisticated design. Back in medieval times, a craftsman that was skilled was also known as a master. Having this title meant you were known to be at the top of your game and highly respected for the work that was put forth. The master would train the young boys in the respective field in hopes to someday become masters as well. This indeed took a long time and a lot of dedication. Until these young boys became masters, they were known as an apprentice. The backstory behind the Apprentice Pillar goes, there was a highly respected master mason who was overseeing the building of Rosland Chapel. The master mason had an idea of how the chapel was going to look, and he also planned to create a marvelous pillar with different types of vines and leaves. Upon the completion of this pillar, he wasn't happy and truly felt that he could have done better, adding vibrance and life. He also felt that he had fell short on his work. So the master mason came up with the idea to visit the different cathedrals in Europe and study the architecture. He then went to Sir William St. Clair and asked for permission to do so. With the blessing of Sir William, the master mason was given permission to travel and study different cathedrals. The master mason left and was gone for many years. During this time, his apprentice was in the chapel one day when he was visited by an angel who provided visions on how to build this pillar. So the apprentice got to work and created the pillar you currently see. When the master mason felt confident enough to complete the pillar, he returned to Rosland Chapel with high hopes and extreme confidence. So you can only imagine how he felt when he walked in the chapel and saw the completed pillar in all its glory that was finished by the apprentice. The feelings of rage quickly escalated once he discovered this amazing craftsmanship came from somebody who wasn't even considered a master mason. Full of rage and jealousy, what happened next was shocking and sealed the fate of the master mason. He picked up his mallet and struck the apprentice in the head, which killed him instantly. Sir William St. Clair and the fellow craftsmen of the master mason were completely shocked and upset by the actions of the mason. He was arrested, faced trial, and hung for the murder of the apprentice. Following the trial and execution, the new builders that took over placed the young apprentice's face and head inside the architecture with the gash to symbolize who he was and where he was hit in the head by the master mason, who was also placed on the Apprentice Pillar for the rest of eternity. This story of the Apprentice Pillar has been floating around since the 17th century. Also, there's another mystery that was placed inside the original design of Rosland that supports the theories of portals, the Hopi creation, and a meeting that took place prior to the Columbian Exchange. In 1456, they began building Rosland Chapel. At this time, Christopher Columbus was just 5 years old. Inside this chapel, there are statues and artwork that depict chiefs in headdresses and maize. How could that be? We've always been told that Christopher Columbus introduced the Old World to the New World, which is known as the Columbian Exchange. However, if maize and chiefs in headdresses are shown inside a chapel that was built when Christopher Columbus was just a boy, there was an exchange between the Old World and New World that had long-lasting effects nearly 50 years prior to the voyage of Columbus? How could depictions of men in headdresses and maize be etched in the walls of Rosland? Maize, also known as corn, could not be found in this area prior to the pre-Columbian exchange. So how could the Scots know about maize and where it came from at the time when Christopher Columbus was just a little boy? Did they open up a portal and go to a distant land where they heard a song, danced with people in headdresses, and ate maize? Or did they simply know the history of a chosen group of individuals removed and moved to a new world? The influence of the indigenous peoples of the Americas can be found all over the world at unexpected times in history. Knowing this and having an understanding of their creation story, you have to take a serious look and question, were they really brought here from Africa and placed inside the Grand Canyon during the Great Flood by the sun god? There's also a legendary story that says hieroglyphs along with Tibetan and Egyptian sarcophagi were found in the Grand Canyon. The Hopi tablets show an image of a pyramid. And if you weren't aware, it's known that there's pyramids inside the Grand Canyon, like this one. And there's landmarks with Egyptian names. To top it all off, once the ancestors of the Hopi saw the sign in the sky and settled, they built their ancient structures to match the constellation that contains their home. These locations on a map are aligned with the stars in Orion with precision. The ancient peoples were able to chart out the star system on rugged terrain without error. This might be the most sophisticated charting of a constellation on land in the world. Some of these are built on walls of canyons, near volcanic activities, strategically placed in this area. The distance between the stars in Orion's constellation fits the distance between the Anastazia ruins here in the high desert. This is not a coincidence. Around the world, complex structures were designed to fit the constellation Orion or certain parts of the star system, like the pyramids in China, for example, or even in Egypt. Were the groups given information on how to build these structures by star people, or did they somehow just figure this out simply by charting the sun, moon, and stars? One civilization had a sophisticated calendar that our current agriculture system follows and has done so for thousands of years. They were known for their script hieroglyphs and ancient temples during the pre-Columbian Americas. The architecture, their art, and mathematics were stellar, to say the least. The calendar was designed exactly to chart the sun, moon, and stars. This civilization existed in Mesoamerica. In present day, the Mayans did not disappear. They are in fact still there, in the same region. With nearly 6 million people, they are the largest indigenous group that is north of Peru. The descendants of the Mayan culture currently live in Honduras, Belize, and other parts of Central America and Mexico. Currently, a strong majority of the Mayan culture can be found in Guatemala, where the ruins of Tikal are located. The ancient Maya date all the way back to 8000 BC. This is known as the Archaic Period for the Mayan culture. Around 6000 BC, is where they began experimenting with domesticating plants. The surrounding climate allowed them a difference in crops, like squash, beans, and maize. The Yucatan Peninsula is widely known as the cradle of civilization for the Mayans. They were led to these lands by people from the sky, possibly their distant ancestors. It's widely known that the Mayan civilization may have had extraterrestrial contact. The Mayans had access to information that the Catholic Church was trying to get rid of. They had an advanced system of knowledge, and when asked about their origins, the response is always, it comes from the gods. Their cities were massive, and some still lay hidden beneath the jungle floor. Recent LiDAR scans of the jungles revealed a hidden city that had yet been discovered that was nearly the size of Manhattan. One of the real important areas is Chichen Itza, because it said the gods visited this city. El Castillo, which is also known as the castle, this pyramid has a special design that aligns with the solstice. On two specific dates, March 21st and September 21st, the opposite side of the pyramid of the rising sun shows a triangular pattern of lights that descend down towards and into the ground. At the base, where the triangular pattern lights descend, is the head of a snake. It's said that this is a representation of their god, Kukulkan, who was a deity that looked like a serpent that was able to fly in the air. It's believed that this temple is built here to honor that god. Located in the ancient Mayan city of Palenque in the 1950s, the discovery of a tomb led to the belief that this lord was given knowledge from a higher source. His name was Lord Pakal. Lord Pakal and his depiction in the Mayan temple is another reason why people believe that the Mayans were visited by extraterrestrials. In this depiction of Lord Pakal, it appears that he is sitting in a chair operating some sort of craft that has knobs and dials. He appears to be looking through an ocular piece, and his feet look like they're on a pedal. How advanced was the technologies that the Mayans possessed? During the acquisition, many of the Mayans were forced to switch to Christianity, and during this period, more than 5,000 scrolls and priceless images were destroyed. These actions destroyed major historical records that belonged to the Maya civilization. It was widely known in the burning and removal of these records, it contained their origins and history of how they obtained this knowledge that was given to them. What some would consider the most advanced piece of technology they possessed, and it was really ahead of its lifetime. This calendar has so many different features besides agriculture. It tracked important dates, which they believed involved activities between gods and humans, which means they also predicted the future. They used this calendar to determine which dates to go to battle, to name people, and to even come up with dates for marriage. The Maya were phenomenal astronomers. They have records on the movements of the moon, Mars, and other planets. And they even accurately predicted the solar eclipse of 1991. In the Dresden Codex, it contains information on the movements that were charted by the Mayans of Venus, the moon, and Mars. They were also able to calculate when lunar eclipses would happen based off of observations and tracking the motion of Saturn and Jupiter. The oldest known surviving book from the Americas was written by 8 different scribes, each with a unique style, around the year 1150 in the Yucatan Peninsula. It folds up like an accordion, and it's about 12 feet in length, and it's made of bark paper. The first accounts of the Dresden Codex come in 1739, when the director of the Royal Library at Dresden became the owner of the Codex. At this time, we know that it came from Vienna. The director then donated it years later to the Royal Library, and that's where it currently sits. It's widely known that the Dresden Codex was a part of and survived the burning of the books by the Spanish clergy in the 16th century. In modern times, during World War II, the Codex took a heavy hit and experienced some extensive water damage. This book, in a nutshell, contains some exceptional predictions on the actions of Venus, numerous astronomical calculations, and the prediction tables of different eclipses. They are about 8 inches in height. It contains written Mayan hieroglyphs, and it points to writings of events that took place about 400 years prior. These writings are about the indigenous peoples that were located in the Yucatan Peninsula, mainly focusing in the area of Chichen Itza. Some of the symbols in the Codex can only be found in locations in this area. Some scholars believe that the Dresden Codex is a copy of an original text that was written sometime during the 12th and 14th century. The Codex played a major part in the deciphering of the hieroglyphs, the calendar, and the numeric system of the Mayans. The accuracy of the astronomical tables is perfect, which also include a series of lunar eclipses and the rotation of the planet Venus. There's also evidence that the 260-day calendar points to specific planets like Venus and Mars. It also contains religious references, almanacs, information on rainy seasons, illness, floods, and even medicine. It has also been proven that it shows the conjunction of planets, constellations, and the moon. The most important feature of the Dresden Codex is the complex number and writing system that the Mayans possessed. The numbers consisted of lines and dots. The dot represented a single digit, and the line represented 5 digits. The number and writing system was introduced by the priests and astronomers, mainly for their astronomical calculations that coincide with the calendar. The Mayan calendar itself is made up of 3 major components. Using the calendar and mathematics, they were able to trace the exact year that they believed the world we currently live in began. That date was 3114 BC, 600 years prior to the pyramids of Giza being built. It was the long count of the Mayan calendar that really became famous in 2012, because that's when that component came to an end. It was a wide consensus that the world would come to an end on December 21st, 2012. Some even guessed the specific time in which it would all stop, and that was 11:11 UPT. It's also known that these predictions did not become truth. Or did they? Go ahead and open your phone. Go to Google, and in your search bar, type in July 23rd, 2012. The activities and events that took place on this day happened. On July 23rd, 2012, our sun hurled 3 super coronal mass ejections that were directed at Earth, also known as super solar storms. One of these solar superstorms was large enough to wipe out any planet in close proximity. Before I go any further, let me break down some of the characteristics of our sun. The star that supports our solar system, its activity is continuous, somewhat predictable, and extremely violent. And it will continue to see an uptick until 2025. One of the things we've learned about our sun is that every 11 years, the magnetic north and south poles flip. One of the strongest events that occurred on the sun in recorded history took place in 1859, known as the Carrington event. During a solar storm that hit Earth, it was reported that people that were using telegraphs who weren't plugged in were still able to use the telegraph because the energy current from the sun was so strong. Some of the major components to our sun are sunspots, magnetic poles and lines, coronal mass ejections, and solar superstorms. The reason why sunspots are continuously moving, that's actually where millions of magnetic lines are entering the sun. And sometimes those magnetic lines, they become twisted until they break. And when that happens, this is typically known as a solar flare. When it comes to coronal mass ejections, also known as CMEs, their exact cause is unknown. Through observation, they typically occur when large-scale magnetic structures become destabilized, and that results in a redesign of the coronal magnetic field on the sun. Solar superstorms happen every 11 years when the north and south pole of the sun flips, causing the entire star to become destabilized and launching super geomagnetic storms into space. Being that the Mayans studied the sun day in and day out, it's possible that they learned this information as well. Typically, when a solar storm hits Earth, it affects our communications, electronics, and pretty much all technology, including power grids. If the Mayans figured this out, that means at some point they had applications that involved the use of electricity, devices with current that could be affected by solar activity. This event was 9 times stronger than the Carrington event. As the solar superstorms are traveling towards Earth, what happened next is something that left scientists baffled for years and simply cannot be explained. The largest of the 3 that was headed towards Earth was deflected while it was coming towards us. Something out in space sent that massive storm away from us that would have been catastrophic to the surface of Earth. In fact, the other 2 smaller superstorms nearly missed us as well. Whatever that was in space that deflected the storms actually saved us from our own sun. Some whistleblowers came forward about this event. How they came about this information, I do not know. But what I know is this. What they said is that there was a massive ship, UFO, UAP, whatever you want to call it, something massive in space that was in between the sun and Earth, deflected those storms somewhere else. Imagine for a second, a massive ship actually saving us from a catastrophic solar storm hitting the planet, sending the world into complete chaos. Wouldn't it be crazy if there was pictures or video of this massive object in space? A composite of images that was collected by NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center caused quite a stir on the internet. The captured images by the Solar Dynamics Observatory and were later processed and observed by scientists show something strange. This video later got a lot of attention on YouTube. There appears to be a very dark object, large and circular, that approaches the sun. You then begin to see what appears to be plasma being drawn from the sun. Online viewers began to speculate and said that it looks like a massive ship that was drawing energy from the sun. Some even went as far as saying that it looked like it was refueling. Keep in mind, this is official NASA video, and all of this information is public domain. And in the second video of a wider shot, it appears to show a second singular craft immediately after you see the first one release. If you look towards the upper left, there is a second shadow and a circular object that releases as well. It almost even looks like the sun itself went into some sort of defense mode and caused whatever that was connected to detach. The official press release came out days later, and they said that the shadow that showed up on the telescope images was not a massive ship. NASA claimed that they were actually solar storms that occurred on March 12th and 13th. If you check the official solar storm log created by NASA, there aren't any solar storms that show up on this day. They said that what shows up in the pictures and video is quite observable. Did the Mayans predict a massive solar superstorm in 2012? Being that they had a vast storage of information on the sun, planet, and stars, this is very possible. They logged so many observation hours of our solar system, they definitely knew something was coming. If they were really given information from the stars, could they have known that something was going to protect us? I don't know what caused these storms to change their path on July 23rd, 2012. But let's say it didn't happen, and those superstorms actually hit Earth and a massive extinction level event occurred. Right around December 21st, 2012, the last living humans on Earth would have been on their final days. Whatever saved us from those 3 superstorms was definitely on our side. The one thing I know for certain is this, is we are living on.
So that means this world right now that we're living in is coming into an end. But anyway, up in Parker one morning, real early in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I was coming from the southern area of the reservation near Ehrenberg, Arizona. And a craft comes down. Actually, at first it was a beam of light. It looked white, but it obviously had all these different sparkles of colors in it, like a rainbow. That crackled. It was huge. It was, I was probably about maybe 10 miles from it. It was easily half a mile wide. Came out of the sky, and then the light went into the earth, and then about 8 to 10 minutes later, I could see the light emerge, starting to emerge, but there was still the moon. I could see the moon, and the moon, I saw the shadow of a ship come out, and then the light went bright again, and then it took off really quick. Now, I didn't see it come in. All I saw was just this light, and then it went into the earth, but I did see how fast it took off. And my patrol unit, radio went off, everything like that happened. I had passed a Carnation milk truck, 18-wheeler. So we were standing there talking and watching what the hell was going on. We were both scared. You know, the story is that the Blues are the ones that were the descendants of, I'll just say, a peaceful civilization.
Okay.
And the other one they call the Greys, which are a lot of people that say that, you know, they equate those to the reptilian. We actually, the last time I saw it was probably about 50 years ago in our village. We have what they call one of those watchers. And, well, it might have been more than 6 years ago because I used to have a tourism business. And 2 of my clients were up there, and they actually wanted to look at meteorological sites. And of course, we went to the Grand Gallery in Utah, and I was telling them how the people were actually aliens. This is a portal, and all this stuff, and they didn't really believe that. But they had actually booked me for a whole month. We were renting a house in Sedona, and we were going to Parkville, Arizona. Anyway, we go back to Sedona, and then one of my cousins calls me and says, "Hey, we're having a dance this weekend. Why don't you come on?" This is up in Palaka, Arizona, Palaka Reservation. So my clients, I go, "Hey, we got an opportunity, man. See this now." So we're going up there, and so then I started telling them about, about the alien connection up there. And there's a really strong particular, where the Laylines and the electromagnetic lines really go right around the Winslow area. Of course, to the west is Flagstaff and the mountain, which we call our Kachinas live in a mountain. They're alien connected as well. Our Kachina dogs. We go up to the deck, and I tell them a lot. Yeah, we have this thing called the Watcher, kind of a clayish yellow skin tone. It's real short. And I told them, yeah, the last time I saw it, I was a little boy. And I was just conversing. So anyway, the Kachinas are dancing, and then they take a break, and then to one side I saw a group of kids coming out in a pack, and I knew that was strange. So I looked in the middle of the group, and lo and behold, man, there was that watcher. And so I tell the ladies, I whisper because there's people around us. I say, don't scream, don't, say, oh my God. Tell them everything what not to do. Don't act surprised. I said, but tell me what you see in the middle of that group. And one of the words was, we need to leave.
Now back to our regular scheduled programming. And the sun may give way.
As you know, move in opposite directions. Around 9:20 a.m. Eastern Time,
5 to 10 miles per hour.
After several tech companies slashed their outlooks, huge spike seen over the past week and a half.
Afternoon, everybody. Couple things here at the top. And get this thing working. Okay, let's see.
We have a space case at 145th and St. Nicholas Avenue.
The Hopi do not like to go in that area. Why was that mountain named after a Hopi woman?
Well, let me tell you this. Let me tell you something about that. So we talked about the CIA earlier.
Yes.
The last time I was approached was shortly after that event that occurred.